Hello everyone. Before we start today's video, if you could all do me a solid and lightly tap the like button, perhaps share the video about and leave a comment. If you are not subscribed, subscribe as well. It would greatly help this channel. Thank you very much. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's log. Subdates 221027.9. Is it weird to put a no trick or treater sign on my boat? I know we're still in the ocean, but for some odd reason we get people and crappily dressed kids knocking on the airlock. Hello everyone, welcome to the 200th exhibition of stupid people. Technically this is 206th, but the first 6, well, they were different. Let's go with that. If you're interested in watching those, I'll link them down below. To start this, we're going to go back to a video I had done called The Eco-Warrior's Bravery. That video centered around 21-year-old Madelyn Budd, who, because of her passion for this environment and protecting the climate for future generations, poured human feces over a memorial of Captain Sir Tom Moore. As a consequence for that, and after much outrage which included her own parents, the medical school dropout was arrested in South Derbyshire and charged with criminal damage. As an update to what she did, because we didn't have an update when I made that video, she pled guilty to causing £200 worth of criminal damage to a war memorial and has spent 3 weeks in prison as a consequence of it. But she was spared immediate jail as a sentence to add to what she'd already done, because the judge had handed her a 21-week prison term suspended for 18 months, with the judge saying you clearly thought about what would cause the most amount of outrage and publicity. The cost of repair was low, around £200. Although the substance you used was deliberately chosen as being the most demeaning and disgraceful as possible, equally, it was a substance which can be easily cleaned. You don't suppose it's because the person who filled it up didn't have a solid bowel movement, do you? Because at this point I'm almost certain it played a key part. Madelyn Budd's defender, Katie McFadden, stated that she has expressed she will not undertake such actions as this in the future. She has clearly reflected on the impact of her actions and expressed how she is sorry for any offence caused to the family of Captain Tom. Considering the standard and the benchmark that Captain Tom occupies, I think you've offended the majority of this country. And I think, while prison would have been a bit much, I think you need to go on a charity walk to raise £33 million for the NHS at the very least, with everyone in this country donating 1 penny for every mile you walk. If you're good at mathematics, you'll realise she's fecked. Some of you will now question, how is it she spent 3 weeks in prison already? Well, that's because she was already in breach of a conditional discharge that had been imposed earlier this year, and additionally to that, the reason she had the chemical toilet thing ready is because she herself had been living in a caravan, so it was in fact her own. But it's okay everyone, after she pulled her stunt with this readily available material, she cleaned the statue with water and tissue paper. Needless to say, Madelyn Budd, the budding criminal that she is, will undoubtedly learn her lesson about what is and is not acceptable and consider optics for future endeavours. Is likely to repeat the mistakes anyway. Many are. They don't believe the deterrent in place is enough to stop them from getting their message out there. Where others have indicated that their inspiration have come from places like suffragettes, there is a key element that separates the suffragettes from the current crop of protesters, and that is the lines they are willing to cross. The majority are not willing to cross the same lines. It is a false equivalence to compare the suffragettes with current climate activists. But as it was a comparison drawn yesterday in an interview with one of those eco-warriors, I wanted to reference it as well. Perhaps Madelyn Budd should join one of those eco-groups, and they can perhaps educate her on how best to protect and stand up for the environment without crossing those lines. And for the sake of it, human feces does not belong on a memorial, unless the memorial is Jimmy Savile's. In England, there is an old saying, an Englishman's home is his castle. The very idea of this is that English people believe they should control what happens in their homes and that no one should tell them what to do there. It is something I wholeheartedly agree with. If it is your home, what you do inside it is your business. if someone breaks into your home, or someone encroaches upon your kingdom, your realm, your domain, you are well within your right to defend it. And if it becomes aggressive, you may use any and all means to protect your home, your castle, your kingdom, your domain, your realm. This is a sentiment I am certain the vast majority of you will agree with. There will undoubtedly be one or two who say, proportionate. No. Just stop setting boundaries. The moment you do that, you allow others to dictate how you look after your home. For this, we now insert Dean Kerry. Dean Kerry was 17 years old when he defended his home, and he defended his home. The major consequence of this particular defending of one's kingdom was that Jack Power, the person who had drunkenly broken into the home, is no longer here, so he was unalived as a consequence of this. The reason he'd broken into the house, Jack Power that is because when he went to go home after he'd been drinking, he had discovered his car was damaged. He had blamed Dean Kerry for this, went to the house, smashed a window with a rock, which led to Dean Kerry defending himself and his property by using a sharp pointy thingamajiggy, you know what it is, that he had found by his bed. Dean Kerry also had stated that one of the reasons he had used this item was because Jack Power had actually attacked his mother. The judge, though, doubted Dean Kerry's version of events, noting that he had armed himself quickly because a 17-year-old against a well-built man isn't going to require an advantage. What makes this all quite fascinating is Dean Kerry had twice been tried for murder, but was eventually convicted by a jury for manslaughter. Now, for an adult to commit this crime, they would face a sentence of 7 years. And Justice McDermott had said, "Nothing I do or say will alleviate this suffering. The sentence I impose must be proportionate to the gravity of the offence of manslaughter and also appropriate to Kerry's circumstances." Dean Kerry was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison, with the final year of it being suspended, so he essentially got 3.5 years. This all happened when he was 17. He is now 21. He has had much of his life wasted by this. Now, I know believability of the circumstances is key, but you have to prove he is lying. And my view on this remains the same. Regardless of what caused the incident with the car, the police should have been called then. Then again, they would have stopped this from going any further because he was drinking, Jack Power that is, who then decided to take the law into his own hands and break into another person's property. My view remains the same. You may defend your property, and you should not have to face such consequences for doing so. And while I'm sure we can all agree that the, let's say, actions of Dean Kerry were excessive, someone had broken into his home. Therefore, my perspective is, while I fully support him being found guilty, I do not fully support him going to prison. And I know for a fact there is a large number of people who watch my content that would agree with that statement. Again, a man's home is his castle. I'm always going to stand by that. So next, let's talk about James Corden. James Corden was banned from a number of restaurants in New York. Why? Because he's a dickhead, and everyone knows it. Quite a number of larger creators have made videos covering James Corden's really bad behavior. I myself, a much smaller creator, did so on the Omegon 2 Electric Boogaloo channel. The video itself has done exceedingly well. Go check it out. In that, I talked about 2 separate instances where he has lashed out at staff, either because a single hair was found in his meal that could well have been his own, which he then demanded getting free drinks for along with his tab being paid for. The second, his wife ordered an omelette, yolk only, and when a small amount of egg white was found in it, he got aggressive, leery, lippy with the waiting staff and offered to cook the omelette himself. He then got the omelette back, but the omelette then had fries instead of the salad, which is what had been originally ordered. This was for his wife. James Corden eventually did address this on his show, and in doing so gave us a rather interesting insight into why it was so offensive to have even a splash of egg white in that omelette. Because his wife Julia Carey is allergic to eggs, or egg white more notably, and I'm sure I'm not the only person sat here thinking, why did you order the omelette then? Why couldn't you have just ordered something else? Why did you want the yolk so bad, so bad, so bad, that you had to have a hissy fit when it had a tiny amount of white in it that you could have cut off and moved to the side? Oh, but the entire omelette is potentially compromised. Don't order the omelette if you know you're allergic to the majority of the egg. How about that? It's a $25 omelette with herbs. Seriously. Understandably, The staff at Balthazar, where this omelette incident took place, have decided to mock him. One server called his entire apology BS. Other servers also pointing out that what he had asked for was not something that is offered, and then was angry when it wasn't up to the standards. Along with pointing out that there are plenty of egg-free options on the Balthazar Sunday brunch menu, which included Belgian waffles, pancakes, 9 entree options like the house burger or a salad. They also questioned whether or not the allergy was real, or the reason itself, pointing out that they deal with this all the time, and that he was just being rude. And while some doctors do advise that a person with an egg allergy can safely eat cooked egg yolks, it's still not a valid reason for being a dickhead. Alright? That's not the doc's part, I'm just adding it in. The final subject of the day concerns Channel 4 and a performer by the name of Jordan Gray. Jordan Gray is a comedian, a comic, who has transitioned. In a sketch on Friday Night Live, Jordan Gray sang an expletive-filled song about her experiences as a trans woman. This, by the way, was part of a one-off return of the popular 80s stand-up show, which was originally called Saturday Live, which aired on Channel 4's 40th birthday celebrations. Other comedians included Harry Enfield, Joe Brand, and talent like Rosie Jones, and it was hosted by the unfunniest guy on the planet, Ben Elton. During this performance, Jordan Gray had told her followers, "Tonight we make history." At the start of the set, she said, "I haven't had a Yorkie bar in 5 years." A Yorkie bar, by the way, is a chocolate bar not for girls, so naturally it's the girls' favourites. In a pink jumpsuit of sorts, Jordan Gray took to a keyboard, telling the audience, "This is the coolest night of my life. You're watching me experience the coolest night of my life." This is foreshadowing, by the way, everyone. She then started singing, with the lyrics being, "I look out in the faces in this room and wish that I could crawl back in the womb and start again against God's plan with different glands and smaller hands." Adding, "I wish the world could finally understand. I'm more than just a female Russell Brand." Then, sung about the Chuckle Brothers and other bits and bobs, but this is where it gets really interesting because then, oh dear God, Jordan Gray took off the jumpsuit and was completely naked. The cool part referenced earlier was because of the breeze. And then carried on performing on stage completely naked, and even played some of the keys on the keyboard with her cock. Something I've never thought I'd ever say in a video on this channel. I can't show you any of it. But Ben Elton, being the funniest guy on the planet, quipped, "Now that is what I call a knob gag." Now I should add, while people might think of this as a gigantic surprise, not really when you see the size of it, Jordan Gray has been pulling stunts like this for a while, so it's hardly a shocker. But I will admit, on Channel 4 this is not something you really want, no. The nudity part wasn't the part that got most of the people. I think it's the part where keys were played with a penis. That might have been the part that really, no. People fought for that channel, by the way, to keep it around. They're not happy. No, there have been a lot of complaints about that. Also, if this is a comedy show, while the lyrics themselves in the melody sung were somewhat amusing, I'm not entirely sure the nudity part was necessarily funny. But I could, of course, be wrong. Comedy is, after all, subjective.